Lemon Amiga presents a Play Giant video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, welcome to another LemonAmiga.com gameplay review. This time we're taking a long play look at the Chaos Engine, released in 1993 and created by the Bitmap brothers and released through Renegade Software on the Amiga. So let's dive straight into this game, check it out. First of all, we must select one of our 6 characters in one player mode. We can choose from the Navvy, the Brigand, the Mercenary, the Gentleman, the Preacher or the Thug. So for this review I will select the Navvy as my main character and the Preacher as the CPU player. So this game is more or less a 2-player vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, a run and gun shooter in a kind of top-down commando way. Or you might say Akari Warriors or Mercs, and some of liking this to Gauntlet as well, where the player has to simply gun down the enemies and collect the money. And with all the money that the player has collected, they will gain a shop at the end of every second level. And basically the player just has to progress through each level from stage to stage. This level starts off fairly easy, and one-shot kills are definitely available with any of your characters. Each character will have a different array of abilities, different speed, intelligence and firepower, that kind of thing. So it is important to choose the correct characters, the most appropriate characters for you. And taking a look at the Navvy first of all, he's the character in the centre with the larger of the 2 guns. That's me. You can only play single player in single player mode. The other player is controlled by the CPU. The Navvy has decent firepower, average intelligence, decent speed, that kind of thing. And the benefit of the Navvy is his weapon upgrades are quite powerful, and later on in the game we will see that the firepower stretches to 4-way shot with the Navvy, which is terrific. And the Preacher also has a very powerful weapon, and he's very intelligent as well, so he will help you out. But the best thing about the Preacher is he carries a first aid kit, and by pressing the spacebar we can swap that for our own special firepower, which is the dynamite. So we have a choice of 2 special weapons. If we get into trouble we can just use the Preacher's first aid kit and top up our energy. As I say, this first level is relatively easy, and after each level we'll get a stats screen. I've only got 99% for some reason. I have no idea why, even though I killed everything. I don't think it's possible to get 100% on any of these levels, or at least I haven't achieved it. So on level 2 we continue with the forest, and there are 4 levels to each world, and there are 4 worlds in the game, which means there are 16 levels altogether. The game is set in a very strange alternative reality, and to get some idea of that we'll have to take a look at the backstory. Apparently a time traveller from the distant future has brought a fantastic amount of equipment and machinery with him back to Victorian England sometime in the mid to late 19th century. And it's all ended up at Fortescue Mansion, where Baron Fortescue has managed to retrofit most of it in order to create his own space and time bending machine known as the Chaos Engine. Unfortunately, the machine goes berserk after gaining a measure of sentience due to its future technology, and that causes its creator and the other scientists to turn into man-eating monsters and genetic mutations as a byproduct of combining different timelines of the past, present, and future. And these monsters create mayhem wherever they go. And this is Victorian England, don't forget, but it's an alternative Victorian England created by this machine, having created an alternative timeline. A group of bounty hunters has to be assembled to get rid of this damn thing, and they've been given the task of cleaning up the surrounding area, moving through the countryside towards the mansion to tackle the Baron and shut down the Chaos Engine for good. So this is where we come in, having chosen our candidates. We can now head out there and get stuck in, and these frogs, you can see, are particularly tricky because you never quite know how they're going to react and which direction they're going to jump in. Sometimes colliding with those things is inevitable, and that isn't helped by the screen being reduced to accommodate both players. But here we are, this is the forest, on our way towards the mansion, getting rid of the last few baddies on the second level. And each of the monsters will be triggered by hidden waypoints beneath our feet along the path, and once they're triggered they appear from caves and other generators, sometimes materialising miraculously, but they always appear in a preset pattern, and once the players memorise that pattern by playing this thing often enough, that's all they need to do to get through the level. You might notice the background graphics are in various shades of grey and brown, and that is reminiscent of most Bitmap Brothers games, it has to be said. The 16 colour OCS palette having been made very presentable here in this game. You can blow these screenshots up to any resolution virtually and they'll still look great. So I definitely like the Bitmap Brothers feel of this game. And here we go, selecting different routes. We can choose to go and collect the health there if we'd have carried on going that way, but going this way we get to take on these very weird popping alien things before we take on a node. So it's important to mention at this point that by progressing through the level, the player will find a number of nodes indicated in the very centre of the status panel, and on this particular level we have one more node left to find. There could be any number of nodes, maybe 6, 8, 10 later on, perhaps as the difficulty curve gets harder and harder. And I have to say I find the difficulty curve on this game is particularly a smooth ride. Some games are spoiled by a very steep difficulty curve, particularly looking at you Captain Planet, which we reviewed concurrently to this. But this game encourages the player step by step with very easy puzzles and often linear gameplay, which just means the player can concentrate on getting rid of those baddies, collecting the objectives, and it makes for a very rapid rise through the levels. So here we go, level 2 completed, and on to the first of our shop screens. And you might notice the player has 1001 coins indicated there on the counter to the right. So here you can see me increasing my skill level in order to be able to increase my health, and by pressing all there, that's an automatic top-up feature, which, as we shall see later on, can be got around. It isn't automatically the most helpful feature, and I'm going to collect an extra life there for my CPU character, which is important in this game. The CPU character, particularly the Preacher, they are particularly resilient to most things, but the Preacher has very, very measly energy, and so the player will have to concentrate on building him up if they want to get anywhere with this guy. As I say, the good thing about the Preacher is the first aid kit, which we'll be looking at much later on. I haven't been hit by anything really up to this point, but thanks to the shop I've managed to ramp up my energy and the Preacher's energy up just a little bit, and thank God for that, I say. Power-ups are definitely necessary on this game. So on this section I'm triggering a few lizard men for a few extra score. It's important to get those guys who appear behind first of all, in case you should need to make a quick exit. That's my tactic, because if you blow up the ones in front and you need to run away, you'll be running into more enemies appearing from the front. So always make sure that the rear is secure. And so let's speed this game through and get to the next point. And blow that thing away, get the cash. And that's a good thing about this game, the cash element. Sometimes you can blow up monsters, they'll deliver a whole horde of cash. And on this part you can get lots of cash by removing all those bugs, or you can go for the dynamite in the middle and that will give you even more. So let's dispose of those frogs and ignore the money. Let's go up the first ramp, kill the guy and get some more weapons power-ups. You can see the weapons power-ups bars next to the weapons icons on the control panel. My main weapon, the dynamite, is full, and the preacher's secondary weapon there, the first aid kit, is almost full. It certainly will be after I collect these two. So should let the preacher collect the food there actually. And by removing this base we can then get to the next section, which includes a whole host of traps. And it really does help to memorize these levels, that it can't be stated enough. And that even includes things like this. So knowing where things appear and knowing when to milk the best score out of this game. Although there aren't too many milking places, I have to say. Let's save the health there, let the preacher get some, and move on. Yeah, there aren't too many places to milk in this game. There are certainly no leeching places, nothing will spawn indefinitely. And to my mind there are surprisingly few bugs as well. Even though on some sections you need keys to be able to unlock the next section, which will then block your retreat back to the previous one. I find there are no dead ends, no way backs, that kind of thing. Anything which could spoil the player or make the player get stuck in the scenery at some stage. I've never come across things like that personally. So let's get rid of a few bugs. There are, as I say, not that many bugs in this game. If you get rid of these two guys down there, you then collect the keys, and that will unlock another couple. And then we can find another secret exit by clicking on the face again. And in here, should we need it, is a first aid kit. And the gold first aid kits there will ramp our energy all the way up to the top. And we don't need it on this particular level, but later on we certainly will do. So get rid of this guy, and I don't think the health gives you any more score, but shooting that extra guy certainly does. And sometimes you can go back there if you really want to get a decent score on this game. Probably the maximum score you can get on this game is somewhere in the region of 60,000, which is a bit poxy really, given the extra 0 on there on the scoreboard. I like to see scores in the millions. 60,000 if you combine your score and the CPU score together, and certainly if you're scoring any more than 55, you can say you've mastered the game. And if you score it in the region of 60, then you are a professor of this game. So definitely scores come at a premium, and I suppose that would be one of my negative points about the game. The simple mechanic of relying on the player's memory as well to figure out the traps and the pattern of the enemies. I suppose you could say that's a bit formulaic, but that also makes the game pretty straightforward and easy to understand. So I would say the player can just get on with killing those enemies, even if they know exactly where they come and exactly where they're going to move to. The intelligence isn't that great, to be honest, but the intelligence of the CPU control player is really good, and you can ramp that up there in the shop should you need to make that CPU player even more intelligent. Some players, some CPU control players, will shoot more of the enemies for you should you ramp up their intelligence. Other players controlled by the CPU will tend to go more for the gold, and the more intelligent gentleman might run away, that kind of thing. But that's the kind of characteristics and stats, the hidden depths of this game. But my tip, should you choose to use it, is to avoid building up the intelligence in the shop, because most characters, particularly this preacher, will tend to go for the coins over the enemies should you do that. So oftentimes it can be an idea to choose the thug as the CPU player, because his intelligence starts at the minimum. So that's one to watch out for. The thug also has plenty of energy as well, and that will help you get through these levels. As I say, the preacher's energy is pretty measly, and it's already bottoming out there. That extra life I bought the preacher in the shop, in the previous shop, is still there, barely. And let's watch out for those respawning things there, respawning critters, and run straight over, kill both of the enemies. It's certainly an advantage of knowing the level. And collect a few of these coins, and I'll show you this as well. If you should do the easy way to complete this level is to remove that block, and that will open up the secondary way to power-ups and money and that kind of thing. But I'm going to take the long way, particularly because I'm trying to get a decent score for a certain competition, which I won't mention at this stage. And by running through this cut-through, that reveals power-ups, and more importantly of all, a weapons power-up and an extra life. So let's just grab those before the CPU player can, so that we are equal on lives, even though the creature is on his way out. I can see from that energy. Get through more of the levels. Sometimes on this game the player might be able to pick up special tokens, special power-ups which last just for a duration, which do a particular thing, like this, which activates party power, which gives the player maximum firepower for about 5 seconds or so. And that appears just the once in the entire game, which is an incredible shame, because that is the best power-up of them all. So the player will get the benefit of having the game spiced up periodically there with those power-ups. That's the preacher. He snuffed it. Oh dear. So I'm going to have to wait until I find a player save token there, and that will respawn the preacher. If you are playing 2-player mode as well, the player will have to manage on their own until they find a yin-yang symbol, and that is the player save, and that will respawn any dead players, and you can continue from there. But I haven't found any so far, so I'm having to be the lone wolf and go it alone. Let's run like hell, because I don't like this bit with all the bugs. You have to get the bomb very quick and get rid of those. The number of times I've died on that section is beyond belief, so let's just get through that. And this is actually the exit to the cut-through we found earlier on, and we can blast through and get that node for some more points. And there we go, player save, and that will trigger the waypoint and give us that preacher back. I know I'm 4 lives, and he's on 2, so perhaps I should buy him some more in the next shop. And in the meantime, I'm going to swap my special weapon and use his power-up, and by triggering that icon we can blow up all these guys, these weapons firing cones. And if we should just lob our dynamite down there, or bomb, or whatever special weapon we have, those cones won't appear, and that just means we are lower on score. So blow this one up to the right. The right is the right way generally on this game. If you find any keys or any options, different keys, always choose the ones to the right, and that will reward us with a full health power up and a few more coins as well, which we're about to use in the second shop. Every 2 levels we get a shop, and apparently that was changed at the last moment in the game. Originally the player got to enter the shop every level, after every level. So here we are, and this time I'll be choosing to by some lives. I'll gain a couple of lives here, mainly because that ends up being cheaper than using the all button or using the mechanics to upgrade things individually. That tends to be much cheaper to buy an extra life to progress through the level than to gain a measly amount of extra health through the upgrades. And you might think that's a little strange on first hearing that, but the point is, with extra life you gain a full health bar all the way to the top, and we both know one life can take the player through an entire level if they should be keen enough. So just one life, it is possible to complete the game. So every life is a complete energy bar to the top, so that can be a lot more rewarding to the player, particularly if they have half energy as I have at the moment, to gain those extra lives and to get the full health. And so I will be topping up the health and extending that later on, but yes, a life you can continue for a very, very long time. So I've just collected the key there, which unlocks the ladder, which gives me all these bonus coins. And these guys, these hunchbacks, whatever they are very difficult. Actually, their firepower is very difficult. I've just walked into one there. So let's get this. This is a weapons upgrade, which should make that job a little easier. And absolutely no reason for that power up. I don't know why that's there. But by choosing one of those yellow columns, the central column contains a weapons power up. The one on the right contains an extra life, which is what I picked up, and the one on the left, I have no idea what that contains because I've never even tried it. But yeah, it's again an extra life there to put me up to 7. And again, rear guard action, always take care of the ones behind so that you never cut off from a hasty retreat. And these hunchbacks will materialise as you reach those trigger points in the level, so it's all about the route you take. And I'll let the preacher get the extra health there, seeing as his health, despite my constant upgrades, is still pathetic. And sometimes he will grab the health, sometimes he won't. It all depends. But 7 lives at this stage is tremendous. And look at this puzzle. You have to wait until this thing changes and then you can blow it up. Again, not a very hard puzzle. It's quite obvious when the player stood next to these things watching it move. And they end up being stuck in various dead ends just below that wall there. But again, it's not the hardness of the puzzles, it's definitely the gameplay of the monster action. That's the thing. Running away from their firepower, running into it, knowing when to take on those guys, knowing when to let the CPU player do it for us, because they can tackle most things on our behalf. They will take the score and the coins, of course, but that doesn't really matter because I've noticed the coins get distributed between every 2 worlds evenly anyway, and the coins really don't make sense in the game because of the fact that I can collect 1,000 coins in the level, so at the end of 2 levels I should have 2,000, but when I look at this coin counter it might be 900, it might be 1,100. So I think the game just makes the coins up to a certain extent. But anyway, that doesn't spoil the game for me. Let's just go around a certain route to get that key. And this time, collect the key on the left. If you collect the one to the right, that's the one to get the extra score. That will conjure up a lot more of those ball-throwing cone things. So I'm taking the one to the left because that reveals energy. And I needed that given that particular situation. So it all depends on what I collect given any situation. But it's worth pointing out that picking up those game saves and reaching those trigger points, sometimes that does cut off our retreat, and sometimes it's worth avoiding those if we want to go back and clear respawning enemies later in the level. So I'm just going to take out this trapdoor. And sometimes that's the best option to stop those things respawning, and take out the ones which did respawn behind. But look at this, I can't seem to get to that area because of where I am at the moment. So you might think I can simply lob my special weapon down there, the dynamite. So let's just try that and see if it has any effect whatsoever. And no, it's blown up everything but. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to backtrack, blow up those respawn enemies. I suppose it's good. But I don't have the first aid kit, unfortunately. But I'm going to backtrack, respawn the preacher, that restart point, and get into that zone for a bit more score. And the first thing I'm going to do is obviously get that first aid kit and top me right back up, and clear this stage. And finally, having done so, I can return to the node and get rid of that thing legitimately. And that means I can also exit to the top of this level and get through to this part by the southern route, which tends to be easier. You can reach that through the northern route generally, but look at this, it's closed off my exit, so I have to go the northern route. And again, I don't think it is possible to get 100% on this game. I have tried to go many different routes to get the best compromise, the best possible, but it's certainly easier to go straight for the exit in this game rather than mess around with different routes. I could have been through the exit door and away by now, but no, I'm showing you all these extra parts of the level. And on this section, if we go to the left, I'll get rid of a few of those guys and spawn the cones. And if I was short on energy at this point, I might pick up those keys to the left, but I'm not, so I'm picking up the keys to the right, and that will give me a weapons upgrade and a couple of power-ups. And you can see I've just used a power-up there to get some more energy, so that first aid kit's certainly worth its weight in gold. So let's remove those things and get to that free zone, that upgrade zone. And that's certainly the way I like to do it, because a weapons upgrade makes sure you can kill the enemies much more quickly and take on more of those. So that's the end of this level. Let's get through the door and check out the next one. So on the second level of this second world, we get the choice of a number of keys, and I would have recommended going to the right generally, but for this playthrough I'm actually going to break tradition and go for the one to the left. And there is a reason behind that, which I will show you a bit later on. And getting rid of these sand creatures, whatever they are, they can be a real pain, particularly on sections of the level later on. But again, the game spices the game up with a power-up or two, just to move the player along. And I'm going to be brave and get through these traps here to reveal these really weird gold, almost dragony creatures, and they are worth a significant score. But if I should pick up that telephone and that player save point there, that will block off the rest of the level. So what I'm going to do is cut through this section here and collect the shield and get rid of these enemies very simply indeed. And that will bring us out roughly to the same point as though we had picked up the key to the right and gone the left route. So that's the exit to that, give or take about 4 or 5 enemies. So I think going to the right and then the left is more productive score wise. And if you pick up both of those keys there by running around that block in a clockwise route, that will drop an extra life, which is much needed. That puts me up to 8. And look at the preacher, he's down to 1, so that isn't really very helpful. I must bear that in mind. But while he's still alive, let's trigger that node, and that will make a teleport materialize, which will take us all the way back to the beginning. And then it's just a matter of taking the central route and getting rid of all these enemies. So this game was designed by Simon Knight and Eric Matthews. Long-time fans of the Amiga might recognise Eric Matthews and Mike Montgomery as the Bitmap brothers, and Simon Knight did most of the design on this game, having previously been involved with Interphase, the 1990 game by Imageworks, and obviously Mike Montgomery and Eric Matthews, having worked on Bitmap Brothers games together, Cadaver, Gods, Speedball 2, and they started together with Amiga Karate in 1987. But the bulk of this game was coded by Steve Cargill, and his other only claim to fame on the Amiga is the Garfield games. You might remember Garfield's Big Fat Hairy Deal in 1988. So Steve coded that, and Simon designed the levels and the graphics. It has to be said, Dan Malone was the graphics designer in this game, and he has crafted a steampunk environment, as the genre has become known. Steampunk in very, very many games, including Cadaver and Speedball 2 in 1990 for the Bitmap Brothers. And Dan Malone has a very popular Facebook page, and where you can view his artwork and that kind of thing. And the music in this game, needless to say, is by Richard Joseph, the guy who, if you tuned into Robocod, did a vast number of memorable classic Amiga tunes for the best publishers, the Bitmap Brothers, Sensible Software, including the Barbarian games, Brutal Sports Football, Robocod, Aquatic Games, Diggers, Cannon Fodder 1 and 2, the SWAS series, even games like Flight of the Amazon Queen, and of course Gods, Magic Pockets, Speedball 2 for Bitmap Brothers. So Richard Joseph there with a massive legacy in the Amiga Hall of Fame. So with the calibre of these guys involved, it's hard to criticise this game, and we will get onto the pros and cons a little later on, of which there aren't that many, to be honest. This game was converted to a number of platforms, including the DOS and the ST. The Amiga version was the first, by the way, that was the pioneer. And after that they created the SNES and the Mega Drive / Genesis version, and in 1994 the CD32 AGA version appeared, which to me, even though it has AGA graphics, I prefer the ECS graphics for the colour palette. Surprisingly, the AGA graphics aren't as good, even though they use more colours. I don't know why they cocked that up, but they did. So the console versions, particularly in the United States, the Micropose licensed console versions of this game was actually called Soldier of Fortune. And another odd characteristic about the console version stems from Nintendo's policy of censoring religious artifacts within games. So the preacher was renamed the Scientist to obviously cut out the religious element, and the bit around the dog collar thing was removed from the graphic. So renaming the preacher to the Scientist for religious reasons, to me, Scientist in America might remind people of Scientology, which to some might appear even more specifically religious than merely saying preacher. So that was Soldier of Fortune on the consoles, even though incidentally the player should have completed that game. They will have seen the Chaos Engine listed in the titles and the end credits. But anyway, look at this, the preacher's down to virtually zero. So what I'm attempting to do here is to allow the preacher to get that food, and he isn't. So I'm walking around it, and he just isn't getting that message. So sometimes the AI, even though for the most part it's incredible, on that particular element that wasn't desirable, to be honest. But never mind, he's still there. He's got 3 lives, and as I say, it helps to give the CPU player a leg up there by buying him extra lives and letting the CPU player collect some of your lives that you find around the level. You will gain extra lives yourself with every certain score checkpoint, and you'll find those and buy those as well. So by the end of this game, You can see I'm already on 10 lives, so by the end of this game I could have already accrued maybe 15. So by selecting the key to the left, by walking over that one, the key to the left there gives us yet another one. That puts us up to 11. So those extra lives can be racked up there with successive gameplay, and as I say, all the player has to do is memorise these patterns. So we're more or less coming to the end of this level now. Just a few more bad guys to go, and thankfully the CPU player has picked up the health this time, and that's about time too. That saves me buying him an extra life and rescues the current one. But you can see those enemies pouring out of those gates just to make the job a little bit harder. And before we exit this level, let's just get the weapons upgrade. So which exit do we choose, A, B or C? For this one I'll choose the B exit. Usually the A exit takes the player to the beginning of the level, the next level, and the B exit takes the player to a bonus stage before the beginning of the level. It doesn't always work out like that, and the C exit can be anything basically. So sometimes it's best to choose the latter exit, the C exit, to gain the best score, but for me I find the B exit is best, and I'm going to blow that machine up there with my dynamite, risk a special power-up to blow that up. But what I should find, having gone around the level, is that machine will rematerialise and then I can blow it up again. So that's just a pathetic 20-point score increase by doing that, but you know, that's one of those things you learn. And again, rear guard action, going for the ones behind first of all. It's important to say that very often in this game. Run away is sometimes the best policy. You can't do that if running away is full of firepower. Even ducking up there left and right and just manoeuvring around that firepower, that's certainly to the player's benefit, particularly when these ghosts spill out these ice crystals or whatever they fire. But looking at the gun I'm currently wielding is it's a 4-way shoot, and that means the corridors are narrow enough to fire through the corridors and to clear those pretty easily with that gun and get to the save point there, get my player back online. And this maze level isn't really particularly hard to understand. Again, it's fairly linear, and I will let the CPU player pick that extra life again just to save me buying him another one. CPU power is at a minimum, still with a weedy gun, still with minimum energy there. Despite me buying him energy, I've decided to buy him the lives instead. He's still going, and that ghost just materialising there to wipe me out. And as I said, this level is fairly linear, and let's speed this game back up again to activate that node, get rid of these guys. That's the preacher out of the picture, and it can be difficult to shoot diagonally there to get rid of those ghosts. And remember to kill these guys as they approach, and that takes us all the way back to the centre of the level again. And collect that key, get the extra energy. And those air jets, they appear to be dangerous to us. They will deplete our energy, but they don't seem to affect the CPU player's energy, luckily enough. This is a very hard section. Look at all these fire creatures. I'll definitely need to take that energy for my own benefit, and if I lure the creature out here before we tackle those guns, I'm now going to chicken my way out there and fire the bomb over the wall, and that should get rid of the guns and the fire creatures. That's a particularly hard section. I've seen players take all kinds of tactics through that area, and so again, the steam doesn't have an effect on the CPU, but these kangaroo creatures are really difficult sometimes. They can land in just the wrong place. They can fire a very fast homing missile fireball thing towards us, and thank God those aren't homing missiles actually, but they can fire it very accurately, and that requires dodges, and you will get used to dodging in this game, very, very much so. And don't blow that up, that's not going to lead us anywhere particularly. Where are we going in this game? Alright, I nearly finished. Got the last one of these, and that leads to the fourth section, and that's just a simple matter of destroying these fire creatures and this gun. So let's just clear this room of enemies, and then not forgetting of course to go back to this bonus area where we can thankfully top up our energy and get a few more power-ups. So the game does help the player along if they uncover those bonus areas and go the most appropriate routes to collect those. The player will gain a helping hand from the game just to top the player's energy up, lives periodically, as I say. So the game doesn't feel like it's very, very difficult, even though the learning curve does get progressively harder as the game goes on, noticeably so. But the fairness of the game, given enough progress, definitely rewards the player. So this game got 89% in Amiga Power 22 and 90% in Amiga format issue 45, which is great. The main pros and cons were the atmospheric Victorian background, the steampunk environments, of course, Dan Malone. The speech samples are particularly well done. I particularly like the player save and the level complete and all those kinds of things. The relatively short levels, the logical puzzles, and the obviously the great graphics and sound, but also the fact that it came on 2 discs was a plus point for these guys. And the only negatives that the reviewers could come up with was the lack of the 3-player mode, which was in the original demo of the game, which was previewed and in these magazines. So they already knew about the 3-player mode, but that was again taken out at the last minute, probably because that would have made the game too easy, having 3 players on screen. And to be honest, it's perfectly challenging with 2, and it would have been really difficult with just 1. So 2-player constant mode there is probably the best compromise. So here we go. This is the 4th world, and those keys at the beginning, if you collect the one just before the 4th one along, and then you collect the 2nd one along, and then the 3rd key, which is the one in the middle, you can unlock that bonus section, which gives you lots of prizes. And you can see there's still 1 key to collect. If you pick that key up, you can go to the right by destroying this monster. If you go to the right there's a series of hand creatures which will make your life a misery, but I'm not going to go to the right because I've managed to unlock the left hand route. I'm going to continue along to the left, and hopefully that will give me a better score. These hand creatures are really a pain in the ass. They can move quickly and they can fire rapidly and on target, so you have to be on your toes for those. The spiders can be difficult sometimes, but generally you can get through those if you have enough firepower. And on these levels, sometimes these statues in the background can be destroyed to unlock even more secret places, and they act as trigger points and keys and that kind of thing. So let's just destroy those guys and clear my way towards that exit. Here I can nip through, and if I destroy the 2nd, the 4th one across, there you go, that will give us a much required weapons power up and a map, which is virtually useless. But I'm going into this death zone basically to show you that by going this route we can join routes together. And if we should have chosen to go to the right in the first main room, the entrance hall to Fortescue Mansion, this is where we would have ended up, although taking the south route to me is much harder than accessing this room from the north. So let's clear those guys and those traps, and then we can continue with the alternative route. So I avoided that player save icon because that would have closed down the route there that we just took. And by collecting that, that closes that down and opens up this one, which is again continuing on the alternative route of this level. And get rid of all those things just to clear that trap. You can blow the trap up straight away if the player should choose to do that, although on a high scoring run like this I'm trying my best to score as many points as possible. Collecting that is a freeze icon, that will freeze the guys, and then you'll find a key maze. So the way I'd recommend is to collect the key to the far right, go very central and then left, and collect the key to the top, and that will open up that weapons cache we saw earlier with the weapons upgrade and the health and a special cut through to the centre of the maze, and that will give you a selection of power-ups and money and all you should require. If you take an alternative route you can collect other power-ups and money, but I find that way is the most fruitful. And then it's just a few more deadly hand creatures to attack us, and then we get to exit this level. They really do come thick and fast, those things, and it's wiped out the preacher. Never mind, let's get out there. And back again to the start of the next level. The preacher will materialise, and for this one, this level in particular, I haven't worked out the best route score wise, so what I'm going to do is go directly upwards from the start to block off that exit, all the way around to the right to go into the last route, and all the way around, which will reveal a key and this hidden cut through section which takes us virtually to the left hand side of the screen should we have chosen a different route through those alleyways. And again, I'm trying my best to go the northern way to gain the most maximum score, watching out for those player saves which will cut off or retreat. So this isn't the conventional route through this level by any means, but I am going this route anyway to get these scores, and watching out for those hand creatures. Guard those things. Really, even if you know where they're coming from, even if you memorise the pattern, it's still very, very difficult. And look at that, one of them has managed to track me even all the way down to the exit. So this is the alternative northern route. Let's get rid of these. And you might have seen the route closed there. Perhaps that was an extra bonus hidden feature. Do not collect the player save. If you get rid of that statue, you can collect a key for a few more points. And then let's close down this alternative route and go through this statue back to the alleyways, back to the start of the level. And this time we'll go the real alternative route to the right, and this will reveal a node. The only problem, as I said, with going the alternative route to the right here is that it doesn't give the player much score. There are maybe only 6 or 7 bad guys going this route, which isn't amazing for score points of view. We'll get a little bit of money there for clearing this thing, and clear the one to the right. Again, right is right to get those bonuses before you get rid of these guys, otherwise you'll find those bonuses have dematerialized and you can't collect them. So just a few more guys now, and we should at last be able to reach the end of the level, and hopefully a shop to revive my preacher again. So that's the B route, that's the alternative route mixed in with an alternative. So 12 lives and lots of energy. I should mention at this point, if you have the first aid kit, it can help to recharge the player's energy to the full using the first aid kit before they enter the shop. And what that will do is to save a tremendous amount of money, because I've known the CPU player spend 1600 credits just trying to build the player's energy from the bottom to the top. And if you use 2 power-ups with the first aid kit, power-ups are worth 250 credits, so that's 500, and so 2 power-ups can virtually restore the player back to full health. Or, as I say, for the sake of the same 500, you could buy an extra life, which will give the player full health again, rather than build up the energy. So use those power-ups to your advantage. And if you see the preacher about to die, or if you are the preacher and you're about to die, obviously go for those power-ups and go for those things. And on this section, if you collect the central key and then go for the right, again, right is right, that will unlock a portal. And here we must use whatever special weapon we have to blow up that device. If we are the thug, we can use our bomb to activate that node, and that will unlock the B route, the alternative route, which is the best way to gain score, not only on this level that I find, that the B route will also unlock much score and many credits going into the next level. So the B route is definitely one to watch out for. So trigger that and collect whatever mysterious items appeared there to get rid of those. And that's another portal which sends us all the way back. And the player might wonder why at this stage, why should they bother? Well, it's more score, it's more level progress, you get to trigger the same things off again, and these baddies which mirror our own player characters, that's a novel idea. They can be tough to get rid of, lots and lots of those things. So again, the novel ideas in this game, conjured up by the unique level designers, is certainly one to watch out for. Knowing when to wade into areas, collect those bonuses in order to avoid dying, or tentatively tiptoe into areas like this, or let the CPU player take care of things to avoid dying again. So the level design, hats off to these guys. I think there could have been more power-ups on offer, perhaps, to spice the game up a little bit. But as far as a Gauntlet clone, it certainly takes the original formula into the stratosphere. Again, most magazines reviewing this in the 90s, Amiga Action in particular, I remember giving this 92%, which is virtually a perfect game. And Amiga Power, it's worth mentioning that Stuart Campbell, who was a staff writer, I think even an editor at one point of Amiga Power, the Bitmap brothers had a kind of a feud with Stuart Campbell, and a few months before the game was released, Stuart received a preview and actually rated the game very well. So the first thing the Bitmap brothers did is released a full-page advert in Amiga Power saying, "The Chaos Engine is so good, even that bastard Stuart Campbell liked it." And I certainly like this game. Maybe not much variety at the beginning, but once the player gets this far and learns this many traps and patterns and level designs, the game's rewards the player constantly with more progress. And the B route in this case will teleport the player to a diamond cache there. So let's get all that score, and we won't see the benefit of that straight away, but given the next shop, whenever we find that level, that will pay us dividends with something like 1600 credits, enough for 3 lives should we need it. And the preacher player, the CPU, certainly requires that kind of care and attention. So let's get through there and materialise to the point where we would have materialised should we have gone through the A exit. And that thing there, the woman disappears just under our feet. If we would have hit that disappearing statue, that would have unlocked the gold key, which is further along to the right. Just run out of the way of that thing, whatever that is. They can definitely track the player. They are the homing missiles of the game. But yeah, we can't collect that key because we failed to destroy the statue, and so all that we can do is carry on and get through these dumbbells and get through the level. There are many monsters which come thick and fast once the player gets to this stage in the game, and even the walls have traps which target the player, track the player across. So if I'm fast, I can get the shield and the food to get through those and to trigger the next one. And there's a kind of a cone in the scenery to the bottom there. That's actually another key, another level design trigger. So let's just trigger that and get those trigger points. You will notice that there are different trigger points which will send the player all over the level, sometimes on different maps. and I particularly like the map design. It really is well coded and thoughtful, and if the player gets stuck they can pick up a teleport in the shape of a telephone, which is another unique feature. I ever thought of picking up a telephone for a teleport, but because we weren't 100% quick off the mark and collected that statue to collect the key, we can now no longer go north here and get those power-ups, which is a shame, but I don't have the first aid kit, so I'm not really missing those. So I can't get through that door. All I have to do is wait for the enemies to come to me, and that should give us all the cash we need. And because we don't have the preacher, we can collect that cash and use it ourselves. So swings and roundabouts really. And again, this game has no fixed attitudes. We can blow through that door even without a key, just using our firepower. So everything in this game is a variable. You never know what's going to happen, what's going to leap out of where. Even these little tiny bugs leap out of the atmosphere. And in this section I like to go the middle route, and that gives us a nice hiding place where we can go. We weren't quick enough to get those keys to unlock the rest of the power-ups, even though I'm on full firepower. I have 4-way gold spread, which is max firepower. According to the manual, it says you should build up your weapon until it goes red. I've not personally seen that effect on this game. Yellow seems to be the maximum, so 4-way spread there is definitely effective on those guys. And let's just get the full health. This bonus area certainly gives us the power-ups, the health, as well as the enemies, so it's best to take our time through here, and because there is no time limit, it's a great game to retreat and to plan actions to survive. So that's that bonus level completed, and I can't get through there unfortunately. I can't blow my way through, but that leads on to another dumbbell tracking section, and for this I find it's best to go around in a kind of an S shape around these columns, retrace our steps and get rid of these whatever they are, Donkey Kongs, hunchback creatures. Reminds me of the thing in Street Fighter 2 actually, I don't know why. Kind of like the Icemen as well, if anybody remembers the Iceman in the Fantastic Four. They really do take some firepower to wipe out, but even with full firepower it still takes some time. So on this section I've no idea why it's possible to remove the middle column and collect a key underneath there. I thought it was to reactivate this teleport, but it isn't, so I've no idea what the keys do on that instance. Sometimes it's worth going back in the level to find out and get rid of this guy before he appears. Definitely worth remembering. So still mysteries to be found in this game. Even after playing this many times and progressing to this stage, there are still things to find out. And so let's get the final 3 nodes. The first one is the south node, and these things track us all over the place. Luckily, just like Captain Planet, if we collide with those enemies they will die and stay dead, so it's always good to clear those things away and free our progress through the level, so we can wander around and find those hidden areas perhaps, and anticipate those, get rid of these things. That definitely comes through trial and error. I've been killed so many times by those particular kind of flying dumbbell things that I'm now hot off the mark and exit that level.
World complete.
And 60% of that level completed despite all that. And the preacher's dead, so let's revive him by throwing 500 of his coins into the pot, which gives me enough to get even more lives, a bit more energy. Puts me up to 13, and it affords him 2 extra lives. So let's keep him on his feet as we go into this, the final world of the entire game. This is the sewers, which is obviously in the cellar of the Fortescue mansion. And here the player might expect the scenery to change, and still maintaining that grey colour palette. even though, as I say, the graphics really do stand upon this game. The limited 16 colour palette makes that especially necessary, but below those UFOs, I don't think you can kill those UFOs, but one collided and I went through the 35,000 barrier, which gave me an extra life, and with 14 lives going into the last 4 levels, that makes the game guaranteed. So I'll flick that switch and that allows me to uncover a number of enemies, and these enemies really are hard now in this level. Progress isn't really made a massive amount more difficult as long as the player has full weapons upgrades, but those, whatever they are, spinning golden discs there, symbols, chakra symbols, whatever they are, they fire very, very deadly fireballs in our direction. But we'll take the alternative route, which is actually the easy route. If I'd have carried on going north along that main route, instead of turning the dial, I would have found life much more difficult and much more score that way. But I'm choosing to fall down the hole and destroy the tracking missile launchers to go the easy way, and that will give us much more bonus points and bonus money and a bit more health as well, which is also needed there. So let's hoover all that up before we clear the generator. But because we've chosen the easy way through this particular level, it's also the quick way, so it won't be very long before we find the exit to the level, which is a shame. I think this level definitely opens up if the player goes through the alternative route. The only compromise is this kind of death zone towards the end, where we get to take on a couple of robots and then get rid of that last node and exit that short route through the level. 1300 cash there. It's a pity that doesn't materialise in the shop, but never mind, here we go. This is the second of the sewers levels, and we cannot go to the left there, so we'll have to go right. And killing rats. It's surprising that killing rats, which is usually the very first game character to appear to kill, is virtually one of the last ones to appear in this game. But the rats are well drawn and of proportional size. It's surprising how many huge rats there are in games. And again, it will give you multiple exits and routes, but on this section you cannot go to the left or to the right. You have to go the middle route, and that reveals these switches. So switch the first two to the left, and then when you're ready to exit that level, switch the last one to the right. And also remember to pick up those bonuses as well. The game never refuses to give you bonuses, which is a great sense of satisfaction when you uncover those. And that's the end of the preacher again, so I'm going to have to rescue him endlessly, constantly. Maybe I should have chosen a different CPU player, but that would have meant being unable to use the very handy first aid kit, which has already saved my life on a number of occasions, so worth bearing in mind. So to sum up, begin my conclusion of this game, I find the graphics very well drawn, particularly steampunk Victorian is an easy genre to get right, and of course Dan Malone hits the nail bang on the head there. The game has been well designed from the start, even though the levels designs have been changed throughout the game's development. I think the final designs work very well. In fact, on the CD32 there are at least 3 hacked versions which contain complete redesigns of the entire game. Somebody has level edited those and changed the levels on the WHD load CD32 version that players can download, but that just means the game must be a tremendously great game if people are going to the lengths to hack this thing apart and create brand new levels, and to me it is. the puzzles, even though they are easy, don't bog the progress down. The action is always constant, unlike some shoot 'em ups which encourage the player to stand back and lob bullets in to participate. The Chaos Engine certainly requires the player to dive into the action on a number of occasions, wade in there and avoid the bullets and blood and guts and duck and dive, if only to collect the money, which you can see I have 951 credits from 13,000 I picked up 2 levels ago. So that's not really fair, but apart from that, there are very few downsides to this game. I'd say that the playability is spot on, the learning curve is spot on, the weapon upgrades, even full weapons upgrades don't make this game a pushover later on, which is good, and there are still things which can kill us later on, as we shall see. There might not be a vast number of different enemies per level, maybe 6 or 7 different types per level, per world, something like that. But with these kinds of graphics and these kinds of sound effects, particularly when I hit the metal of these tin creatures here, which appear like rats out of the hole, the sound effects are brilliant, as you would expect, and the in-game music, again, Richard Joseph. I particularly love the funky bass guitar in the second world, which could probably only have been done on a synthesizer because the loop repeats so quickly. So I find those breakbeats really do get inside the player's head. And as for longevity, this game probably took maybe 15 attempts to complete. But when you consider each of those 15 attempts was averagely 2 hours, maybe a bit less than that, maybe a little more on certain early playthroughs where I really was taking my time. So 15 games at 2 hours a piece, that is quite a long time. So when the player does complete the game for the first time, particularly with 15 lives, look at this, they will think the entire game is a breeze and a pushover, which will allow the player to play it again with a different character and a different set of characters, or play it again with a teammate. And certainly having a friend to play in 2-player mode increases the play score of this game, probably it's 95%, because then you've got 2 heads to bang together and steal coins from each other and steal power-ups and lives and that kind of thing. The only downside of that is the play area may compromise when playing in 2-player mode, so that the both players can be centered more or less in the screen at once. It's difficult when players move off the screen and have to teleport back, and I've been known to leave a friend stranded behind just so that I can run for bonuses and he has to waste time materialising, that kind of thing. So 2-player mode is frantic and adds to this game, although a 3-player mode would have been welcome nevertheless. And the fact that this game comes on only 2 discs gives away the fact that the code was highly optimized, and the CD32 version wasn't maximized. It would have been nice to get an extra level beyond the Chaos Engine and Dr. Fortescue himself, but that wasn't to be, and the players had to hack the levels to death in order to be able to get that. And so the longevity is there should the player look for it. When I originally had this game in 1993, the original boxed game, the original box discs, I didn't get very far, to be honest, maybe up to the second world, and then I found this game very hard indeed. And just like Robocod, I've played this game again this year, 2012, and that was basically because the game came up on the Lemon versus EAB games competition. So if you're a fan of EAB or lemonamiga.com, definitely check those sites out and feel free to participate in the competition. And I have to say, the compo has really opened my eyes to quite a number of games that I wasn't very good at before and have now since mastered as a direct result. So I'm now reaching virtually the end of this penultimate level, just a couple of missile tracking robots and pain in the ass tracking droids to kill, and then get rid of these 4 nodes, and we should reach the end of the level. So to me, the Amiga Chaos Engine was the first and the original Chaos Engine, which is the best, and really took the gauntlet stroke commando formula on to the next level. And even though some aspects of this game appear rushed, or at least to my mind not completed on time, I think with another few months of development this game could have been polished off immaculately, but perhaps I find the coders perhaps just run out of time to really get that last few percent to make this superb. But it still is an excellent game in its own right, to my mind at least, and that's why this game definitely deserves a 90%. So this is the final full level of the game. The next level is the end of game boss himself. So at this stage it's just a matter of running and gunning through robots and running and gunning away as much as possible. Those things will track the player, but luckily if they've gained full speed in the shop, they can just about outrun those things, which is good. And same things will emerge from the generators, so let's get rid of that. But the thing about this level is the reactors are split into 4 reactor cores, and that's the first one deactivated already. We just have to blow up the south side of those reactor cores and the whole thing will blow up. But the bottom 2 reactor cores are fairly easy, but the top 2 I find are particularly hard. As I say, I've only played this game probably 15, 18, maybe 20 times in my lifetime, so I'm not very good once I get to this point of the game. But what I find it's best to do is just to get to the end point there where the things blow up, and then to run in as fast as possible, get that reactor core out of action, and hopefully with 14 lives on the go it should be possible to complete the game. And the right hand side of the level mirrors the left, so let's do all that again. The preacher, even though he only has 2 lives remaining, has died, and he'll come back if I find a player save checkpoint. So let's move through these guys and see if we can find one. Get rid of that generator there, and move up to the third actually of our generators, the reactor cores, and moving to the top one. The top one to the right for me is the hardest one, although you can cut through to the same thing from the left hand side should you choose to do that. Not much energy there, so let's go back and rematerialize with our buddy, and let's see if we can do that a bit better this time. Hopefully it should be a bit easier without that generator. And let's see if we can find the blow up point of these missiles and walk towards that. Seems round about the second column, and run in there, run healthy leather and blow that thing up. That's definitely what I recommend. And with all 4 of those out of action, that means we can go to the last level, World 4, Level 4, which is the Chaos Engine itself, which has assimilated itself with Dr. Fortescue, the inventor. So what you have to do first of all is to get rid of the Chaos Engine part of the machine by blowing that up. You can run around that thing anti-clockwise, clockwise, it doesn't really matter until you get rid of that thing, and that reveals the inner core, Baron Fortescue himself, which requires extra patience as he fires fireballs in different directions, and it's best to hit him either straight down or straight across to make sure those miss there, make sure those bullets count. And it really doesn't matter if you have lots of lives, but if you're on your last life he can be a bit of a pain. In fact, the very last time I played this, I was on my last grain of energy and so was he. It was him and me, and it ended up being me obviously. But let's just get him down there and then we can complete the game.
I have guided you here so that you might set me free. The chaos has ended. You will be remembered.
And that's my final score. So thank you all for watching my long play guide to the Chaos Engine. Hope you guys enjoyed that. See you soon.